Greetings, folks, and welcome to today's show. The state legislature is back in session, as you've probably been reading some about. They have several big issues staring them in the face this year, and we thought we'd talk some about that. And our guest today is Senator Janice Bowling, and she's right in the middle of a good portion of that. So we can find out what's going on. And Senator Bowling, is your district is 16?
Senate District 16.
You have 5 or 6 counties?
Seven counties. Seven counties. Grundy County in the middle. It's an easy thing on the map to locate fairly quickly. If you look for what looks kind of like a daisy, with Grundy County in the middle, and then Coffee, Warren, Van Buren, Sequatchie, Marion, and Franklin. So we're the 6 petals that are contiguous with each other and with Grundy County, with a slight exception of Van Buren, but you can throw a rock from Van Buren and hit Grundy, but it's just not quite connected, but it is connected to Warren and Sequatchie.
Yeah.
So there we are right in the middle of southern Middle Tennessee.
Yes, you are. Okay, very good. Let's take a short commercial break, folks, and we'll come back and get into business.
You made the time and the sacrifice to broaden their horizons, to see their smiles, but mostly to make lifelong memories. We think it's time to do it again, just the 2 of you. Don't let illness or injury slow you down. The rehab team at Life Care Center of Tullahoma is ready to help you live well.
Let the Smokehouse be your mountain getaway destination in beautiful Monteagle, Tennessee. Enjoy our cabins, restaurant, and old general store. Shop thesmokehouse.com, featuring homemade barbecue sauces, jellies, and many other fine Tennessee products. Our live Music on the Mountain series features some of the best local and Nashville talent every Friday and Saturday night, 6:30 p.m. No cover, kids welcome.
We're dealing, folks, today with several issues that are staring the state legislature in the face, and we have Senator Janice Bowling with us to discuss these things. So let's talk some. Dispense with Insure Tennessee. The governor and his staff spent 21 or so months, and they say thousands of hours, putting together this plan. It went to the legislature. He called a special session of the legislature. The bill was presented. A special committee appointed, of which you were a member. 3
special committees in the Senate and 6 in the House.
And it was voted on about the 2nd or 3rd day of the special session, voted down 7-4. And how come? What happened?
Well, that was a very bizarre turn of events. We knew the governor had been trying to negotiate something with HHS, and then December the 15th, we received an email that he had come to a verbal agreement. That still is a verbal agreement, and as Yogi Berra would say, a verbal agreement ain't worth the paper it's written on. But he was going to give it to us, and then we found out about the first week or second week in January, I guess it was the first week, that he wanted a special session. And this could have been conducted through the regular committee process during a regular session, but he wanted a special session. He wanted it up or down with no amendments, can we get something more firm? Can we find out if we can negotiate a little better? Can we, whatever. It was going to be take it or leave it, all or nothing, and in a special session. Well, once you ask for a special session, that creates a whole different rule set. In the Senate, they divided the Senate into 3 committees, and I had the ability to be put on, not the ability, but I guess because I wasn't on Commerce, Finance, or Health, they took the rest of us that weren't on those committees and kept Finance intact, but then reconstituted Commerce and Health so that 10 to 11 members, because the speaker was not on one of the committees, so there were 32 members that were divided between 3 committees. And in the House, they had 3 committees and 3 subcommittees, and I think they were the same committees, the Commerce, the Finance, and the Health and Welfare, but subcommittees of each and then the committees. We met with the governor on Monday evening. Let me back up 1 minute. A week before that, though, there had been an AG's opinion released. And at that AG's opinion, the Judiciary Committee had called for a hearing to hear what the ruling from the AG said and meant, and to have 2 people, 2 lawyers, 2 well-versed in Medicaid, to be kind of opponents and proponents, or antagonist or protagonist, if you will, of the ruling on the AG's opinion. Well, I'm newly appointed to the Judiciary Committee, so I had the good fortune of being on that committee to hear something, never thinking that I would be involved in what was going to happen the next week, because until that point, well, even beyond that point, the Senate did not have anyone willing to carry the joint resolution. There were more questions than there were answers, and no one wanted even particularly to carry it. The House already had it. So we thought the House would deal with it, send us their recommendation, and then we would be able to look at it and deal with it, and then there would be a vote of each chamber.
Okay, what happened though?
At the Judiciary Committee, the 2 lawyers, one a Dr. Alt and the other Professor Bloomstein from Vanderbilt, who is the recognized expert on Medicaid in the state of Tennessee. Excuse me, he was Bredesen's counsel. He was Bredesen's help, his right-hand man, to extricate Tennessee from the expanded Medicaid of 10 years ago that almost bankrupted the state. And but he was the proponent and the other man was the opponent, or whatever. They weren't really speaking in opposition, but they were giving balanced sides. When Professor Bloomstein spoke, his admonition was, if you're wanting me to come here and speak to you with some strategies or tactics, if you were to choose, in my opinion, strategy 2, which is to expand Medicaid in Tennessee, then I will answer those, rather than strategy 1, which is to not expand Medicaid in Tennessee. And so he started talking. He said, I would suggest that you go to the governor, you tell him that you commend him for trying to come up with some way to take some of the issues that have been brought about by the Affordable Care Act, not in play quite as much, or to add a few market-driven initiatives to them, but tell him that what he's given you is one step above talking points, that there is nothing in this proposal that has been negotiated to the benefit of Tennessee, that this needs to have more negotiation and it needs to come back to you as a legally defensible document. Right now, there are several really strong concerns that Professor Bloomstein had about the proposal.
Let's see if we can clear things up here. The governor presents a plan which he's negotiated with Health and Human Services, and so I understand there may have been, there was some concern about the fact that he didn't have any waiver agreement with them in writing.
TennCare is a waiver. TennCare is a waiver, so Tennessee's already operating under waiver, which is one of Bloomstein's concerns too. We're operating under the waiver. So this was an Amendment 25. The waiver has been amended before. This was Amendment 25 to the waiver, which is TennCare, which is Medicaid in Tennessee. We received this proposal, this verbal agreement, a few days before, or about the same time, which was a few days before.
The proposal you got from the governor was in writing, was it not?
Parts of it. And when we would ask, well, how will this happen? They said, well, we haven't operationalized that. It was one step above a talking point. There was no meat to the bones. There was really no implementation, processes, procedures, protocols. It was we would love to do this and this and this, but there was no way that this was going to do it. And this was Professor Bloomstein's concern, because everyone thought this is the working poor, 100 to 138% of the poverty level. Well, it was 0 to 138% of the poverty level, with 15% of the people would be full-time employees, but 54 to 70% of the people would be below 100% of the federal poverty level. Federal code says if you enroll someone who is below the federal poverty level, you cannot require any copays, you cannot make them do anything, you cannot refuse service, and you cannot disenroll them. That was huge, because that had the potential of actually, at first they said about 180,000 people they thought would enroll, then it was up to 200,000, and then 2 days later it was at 280,000, and then the Hospital Association thought it would be 400,000. So we're looking at, do the numbers on that, that it was going to be 54 to 70% below 100%. So the assumption there is those people are not working full-time, so they wouldn't be eligible for the volunteer program.
In the analysis in the press after the fact, none of this legal stuff was really, all of the details you're talking about, nothing was ever said about those.
I know, that's the problem. The real deal, the bottom line, Professor Bloomstein said he really strongly did not support it. I had this much information. I found out Monday evening that I had been assigned to the health care. We would start meeting that week. We weren't even sure when we left that meeting. We met with the governor, we went back to our chambers, we were assigned into the committees, and then I was told that there was, no, actually we were assigned to the committees, then we went and met with the governor. And then after the governor's speech, I was told that there would be a further information provided in the old Senate chambers for anyone that wanted to go and listen. So since I found out I was going to be on the health committee, I certainly ran over then to that committee, or that briefing, and it was the governor's chief of staff and the young man that had been kind of heading up this. And the questions that were being asked, that's when I first found out that it would include below 100%. The professor had alluded to that, but I thought, well, I'm not sure why he's concerned, because all this is 100 to 138%, that gap, because, and I thought that's what it was. But what I found out is it was those that would have been eligible under the traditional TennCare, Medicaid, and then it would also include the newly eligibles, which is the able-bodied, so they would not have any pre-existing conditions. And I was told this was for the county and rural hospitals. 85% of it was going to the 4 teaching hospitals in Memphis, Nashville, Knoxville, and Upper East Tennessee. So only 15% of the money then was going to be filtered down to the other 95 counties, actually about 90 counties that have hospitals. Some counties don't. In my district, Van Buren doesn't have a hospital, so there are several counties. Grundy County doesn't have a hospital. But the point is, what you heard in the ads was a polled message. What the reality of looking at it was that we were going to end up being worse off than we were when Bredesen had to fix the hole in the bucket that was in TennCare, that was taking money from education, from all other services the state has to provide, and it was going to leave us more vulnerable, because the professor said, you can have a verbal agreement, and I can promise you that doesn't stand up in court, or you could even have a written agreement, but the federal code is what a federal judge will look at. So it was a very difficult couple of days for me in reading and talking to the experts and talking with the governor. But I had to make a decision on the information that I had, and the lack of, we haven't decided how we're going to do that. We have not operationalized this. We haven't operationalized that. There were more questions than answers, and the more I studied, the more frightening it became.
We've need to take a short commercial break, folks, and we'll come back.
At the time, maybe you were just building a bridge, a business, or a community. Maybe you were simply working for a home or a better tomorrow. At the time, you served out of duty and love of country. But in that time, we see a legacy created, an American dream lived. The rehab team at Life Care Center of Tullahoma is ready to help you live well.
Are you tired of getting those letters in the mail being turned down for that new car due to bankruptcy, medical expenses, or divorce? Then look no further than Russell Barnett Kia. Good credit, bad credit, no problem. Here at Russell Barnett Kia, we are your bank. Dial 931-455-6066 or visit us on the web at russellbarnett.com. And remember, we are the bank and we can help you. Good credit, bad credit, no problem. Why buy anywhere else?
We're back, folks, and we were talking initially with Senator Bowling about what happened to Insure Tennessee, and that appears to have gotten bogged down somewhere in a lot of technical detail, and
The devil's always in the details, Tom.
Was not passed by the special committee that was appointed, and that was the end of that debate.
And I would say this, it has been found out that it would not have passed the House, it would not have passed the Senate, it would not have passed any of the committees. We just happened to be the tip of the spear, the first committee.
Well, you know, there is one line of thinking that said, you know, at least it should have gotten a full open debate.
I would have loved that, but unfortunately, once the special meeting was requested, and then that set about a whole different set of rules, and that was not the rules that the Senate was allowed to go by. So that would have been my preference for sure.
Let's go on to education. The business world has been telling us that we're not educating folks for the modern technological age. We're not giving them suitable workers. And there have been some criteria established that were done by the National Governors Association together with the school leaders around the country that resulted in the Common Core standards, which have become a political football, and they were adopted in Tennessee in 2010 and appear to have been making progress in improving our scores in certain areas. But there was a lot of political controversy developed over it in the last couple of years. The governor put together a long review process that was going to take place over the next year or so and give everybody a chance to get rid of their gripes. And then the legislature was going to set up a special group also to maybe even develop new standards as well as just looking at the existing ones. And so that meant we'd have two different reviews going on, one at the administration and one with the legislature. So now I understand we're at the point of having to come to some conclusion about what we're going to do with this. What is the action?
To my understanding, there was one bill that was brought before the House, a subcommittee the other day, that was asked to be rolled to the next week, and it was going to involve making certain that we were setting up very rigorous Tennessee value standards. I think the biggest concern had been that you were once again looking for a cookie cutter approach out of Washington, which is essentially where this was going to come from.
What do you mean out of Washington?
Common Core.
The Common Core was already
would be
out,
controlled
and it didn't come
more.
from Washington.
Common Core originally was proposed to the governors at a meeting by some group which essentially were people who had interest in Park Testing and Pearson Publishing. They are two companies. Pearson is headquartered, a corporation headquartered in London, England. And Park is the test that we had adopted through this.
To go along with
that exactly right.
Close to the Common Core standard.
Which was a single source provider, if you will, Pearson Publishing, the Common Core standard, and then PARCC testing. It was a consortium that went from those that owned the publishing company to those that owned the testing company. Before, for instance, in Tennessee, there was
I don't know what was, regardless of who it came from. And I know that the state, that was another complicating factor. The state ruled out last year or the year before the use of the PARCC test, which left nothing on the floor, that would test against the Common Core standard.
Well, I think what you're saying and what I'm hearing from the teachers, from parents in particular and teachers in particular, superintendents, I think, met the other day and want to keep Common Core standards. You talk to the teachers, you talk to the principals, you talk to the parents. That's not what you're hearing.
Well, it's a mixed, it does have support from.
It has some support and it has a lot of non-support. But what it does have, no one disputes that you want to have the most rigorous standards available in education in Tennessee. A lot of the changes that have been made have been good, that were not necessarily correlated to Common Core, but are showing a result, an improvement in teaching. But teachers right now have never been so demoralized because there's no ability to really teach. There are tests on top of test on top of test, and there are things that are totally unusual to Tennessee and what we would want our children necessarily to emphasize in the learning.
Well, and the test on top of test on top of test is not related to Common Core, though.
Evidently it is. Evidently it is, because that's what is promoting this.
State mandated tests that existed even before Common Core came along.
Most of this is correlated to the new teaching methodology that's required through the evaluations and through Common Core. Now that's what the teachers are telling me and the parents are telling me. Obviously I don't have children in the classroom anymore, and my grandchildren go to school down in Alabama. But the main objections, as I understand them, are that there's too much teaching to the test. The test is the tail that wags the dog, and the test is owned by this PARCC consortium. And the bigger philosophical, it's not owned by PARCC? You're shaking your head.
No, but the tests you're talking about, I think, were not PARCC. Those are tests that have been there all along. Well, let's just get to the point now. You've got two different situations going. The standards are on the books. I mean, that's Tennessee law presently, and then you've got these two processes to try to figure out a way to resolve the question and get on with it. And I'm not surprised the teachers are frustrated, because they've had different reform methods thrown at them for the last 15 years.
I think it has become almost perennial. You think you know what's going to happen next year, and every year there's something new, something better, something different. And different's not always better.
Between these two camps, how are you going to resolve this?
Well, as you know, there are several bills. Yesterday was the deadline in dropping bills. I have not seen the compilation of bills that were dropped, because many of them probably were dropped at the 11th hour. A lot of people wait to put them in, so that we will see what legislation is being proposed. I haven't been privy to that. I'm not on the Education Committee. But in the House, they've divided the Education Committee into administration and into curricula. So there were so many bills they were expecting in the House, they recognized they would have to have two committees that would have, and they would have the distinction then of which bills would go through which committee. Next week when we go back, we'll be able to see all the different bills that have been dropped, and to see what it looks like is going to be the way. I've been told it's going to be the leading issue this year is how to resolve and to get this settled down so that teachers really can be allowed to teach again and not feel that they are spending their whole life implementing one thing after another, one new methodology after another. And when you have a test that's so particular to a particular curriculum, then you've got to make certain that you're not training rather than teaching, and there is a difference. And traditionally,
there's no test in existence at the moment to test against Common Core. That was part of the.
Well, if Common Core has
part of the problem, you know, that they.
But is Common Core a methodology, or is Common Core a set of information?
It's a set of standards. It's a set of expectations. You know, here's what you're being asked to teach in the third. You know.
Do you remember elementary school? Do you remember in first grade you learned to read, and in second grade you learned addition and subtraction, third grade multiplication, and then fourth grade maybe division, and then you learn long division, and then you learn cursive writing in second grade, printing in first grade, and cursive maybe in second. I mean, there were expectations throughout history of education. So it's not like there haven't been standards, and the standards evidently were pretty high. We've got folks that can get people to the moon. We're living in a town of people that evidently had very high standard educations in public schools.
Yeah, but if you look at the state of Tennessee, you know, we wind up always in the bottom 10 states in terms of educational accomplishment.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're moving up, and I don't intend for any of us to go backwards, and I think that teachers need to be more involved. Teachers had not been involved prior to this, and we need to get the standards firm, whether they're Common Core, whatever those are. Maybe if someone could really give us a list of those standards. Have you ever seen a list?
No, I haven't examined the standards, no.
Right.
Well, guess what? We've run out of time.
No, please.
So we didn't get very far.
We didn't get to the Intractable Pain Act, the repeal of that. I had hoped we would get to that.
Let's take a short commercial break, folks, and we'll have to wrap up.
Imagine a world with more birthdays. We strive for it every day. We fight to get people the best access to care and the chance for more parties to plan. We're the American Cancer Society. Help create a world with more birthdays at morebirthdays.com.
Get your news first, fast, and free with your news leader on 6 every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday nights at 6, 8, and 10 p.m. Local weather, sports, community calendar events, and a comprehensive look at the latest news stories and news makers as only a video news broadcast can do. Get it first, fast, and free with News Leader on Channel 6, your local information network.
We're back, folks. We've been talking today with Senator Janice Bowling, and there are a whole bunch of things before the legislature, most of which we didn't get to. But I want to thank you for taking time to join us, and I think you got your work cut out for you. So
definitely.
Good luck, and let's and make something good come of the session for us.
Thank you so much.
And thank you, folks, for inviting us into your parlor, and we'll see you next time.